Africa is poor, dangerous, and full of diseases. Sounds familiar? These are the stereotypes most people think of when they hear Africa. But what if I told you these ideas are completely false? In this video, we're going to uncover the top 13 shocking lies about Africa's history that you've been told. Stick with me, the last one will blow your mind. Let's dive in. One of the biggest misunderstandings of the modern world is that Africa was a dark continent, isolated from the rest of the world. This harmful stereotype paints Africa as a land that needed saving, reinforcing a colonial mindset. This myth stems from 19th-century colonial attitudes. People spread the idea to justify colonial exploitation, portraying Africans as inferior and in need of European civilization. But history shows us that Africa is home to some of the world's oldest civilizations. Think about ancient Egypt, a world power long before European nations even existed. Then there was the Kingdom of Kush in present-day Sudan, which rivaled Egypt. African cities weren't just part of the global trade, they were the key hubs. The Kingdom of Aksum, located in modern-day Ethiopia, was a major trading power from 100 to 940 CE. It connected trade routes between Rome, India, and China, exporting gold, ivory, and importing silk and spices. Africa was a central player in global commerce long before European colonization. On Africa's east coast, cities like Kilwa, Mombasa, and Zanzibar were bustling with trade. They connected Africa with the Middle East and Asia, trading ivory, gold, and textiles. Africa wasn't just about trade and civilization, it was a hub of learning. Take Timbuktu in Mali, for example. In the medieval period, its universities and libraries were world-famous, attracting scholars from across the globe. All of history keeps screaming at us that Africa was far from a blank slate waiting to be discovered. But people still suppress the truth. Some people say Africa didn't have writing until Europeans arrived, but that's another lie. In Ethiopia, the Guizi has been around since at least the 5th century BCE. Even today, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church uses this script in religious services. In Liberia, in 1834, a group of 8 men, who didn't know how to read or write at the time, created the Vice script. The Vice script is still in use today, showing how useful and adaptable it is. This proves that African communities could invent their own writing systems based on their needs. The Berber people of North Africa have used the Tifinagh script since around 3000 BCE. Today, it's still taught in schools in Morocco and other places. The idea that Africa didn't have writing before Europeans came isn't just wrong, it's a major distortment of true African history. Moving on to the next myth, some people think Africans only built huts, but that's not true. While it's true that some communities have built simple homes using local materials, it's far from the full picture of what life in Africa has looked like, both in the past and today. Take the Great Mosque of Djen in Mali, for example. Built in the 13th century, it's the largest mud brick building in the world. Its towering walls and intricate design have shocked researchers. Or think about Great Zimbabwe, an ancient city where massive stone walls were built without any mortar to hold them together. If we travel to Ethiopia, the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela will leave you amazed. These churches were carved directly from rock in the 12th century, combining faith and engineering in a way that's truly breathtaking. And then there's Timbuktu, a city in Mali known for its ancient mosques. And of course, we can't forget the pyramids of Giza in Egypt, which show just how advanced African civilizations were thousands of years ago. It's true that in some rural areas, people have traditionally lived in huts, just like anywhere else in the world. For example, the San people in southern Africa build temporary shelters that suit their nomadic lifestyle. Similarly, the Himba tribe in Namibia constructs huts from mud and cow dung, designed for their needs and environment. However, This doesn't mean all of Africa looks like this. Today, you'll find bustling cities with skyscrapers and lavish infrastructure across the continent. The second lie is that Africa is poor, and always has been. This idea is not just outright wrong, it's damaging. It has deep roots in colonial times when European powers needed a way to justify exploiting Africa's resources and people. Unfortunately, it's a mindset that still impacts how Africa is seen and treated today. But in truth, Africa's history is filled with wealth. Ancient civilizations like Egypt were some of the most richest and advanced in the world. In the medieval period, you'll find empires like Mali, led by Mansa Musa, who is considered to be the richest man in history. Even before the colonial era, Africa's cities like Cairo and Fez were bustling with trade and culture. These cities were thriving hubs with large populations, universities, and libraries. The trans-Saharan trade routes were a lifeline for goods like gold and salt for the entire world. The media often paints a bleak picture of Africa: starvation, poverty, and despair. But what if I told you this narrative is not only misleading, but also overlooks some truly astonishing facts about the continent? Take Nigeria, for example. This country boasts a GDP of nearly $200 billion, making it one of Africa's largest economies. Nigeria holds a staggering 37 billion barrels of proven oil reserves, making it the top oil producer in Africa. In South Africa, the economy hits $403 billion. But it's not just about numbers. South Africa sits on a treasure trove of minerals: gold, platinum, diamonds, you name it. Egypt is a proud owner of natural gas reserves, especially the massive Zohr gas field. It's positioning Egypt as a key player in global gas exports. And we can't forget Senegal. This country has recently begun producing oil and gas, with new projects set to significantly boost its economy. And with the government's Vision 2050 agenda, Senegal aims to triple per capita income through strategic investments, transforming the nation into an economic powerhouse. So next time you hear that Africans are poor, remember these facts. Now let's tackle a common misconception about Africa that just doesn't seem to go away: the claim that all of Africa is full of disease. Africa is not one big, homogeneous place. Each country faces unique health challenges shaped by its geography, economy, and culture. Yes, some regions deal with diseases like malaria or tuberculosis. But here's the thing: many African nations are leading successful public health campaigns that have dramatically reduced these illnesses. For instance, vaccination drives have brought diseases like measles and polio under control in several countries. That's progress you don't often hear about. Whenever there's an outbreak in Africa, the media often makes it sound like the entire continent is in crisis. The truth? Most outbreaks are localized. Take Ebola, for example. It's affected parts of West and Central Africa, but many countries have never seen a single case. Now the next lie is that Africa is a dangerous place. The media loves to highlight the bad news, creating what some call the bad news syndrome. That means most of what we hear about Africa focuses on conflict or disease, ignoring the amazing things happening there. But Africa is also home to some of the most jaw-droppingly beautiful landscapes, rich cultures, and world-renowned tourist spots you won't find anywhere else. Mount Kilimanjaro, located in Tanzania, is the highest peak in Africa. Yes, you can hike up for panoramic views of the surrounding landscape. The Serengeti National Park in Tanzania is the best place to see animals. Its vast plains allows animals to roam and live as they please. Thousands of tourists, photographers, and scientists go there to witness the Great Migration, where millions of wildebeest, zebras, and other animals move across the land every year. The Victoria Falls, on the border of Zimbabwe and Zambia, is known as one of the largest and most impressive waterfalls in the world. Its thunderous roar and misty spray makes you realize how tiny you are. Africa's tourism industry is booming, and more people are feeling the pull to see the continent's vibrant spirit. In fact, Africa is expected to be the second fastest growing tourism region in the world in the next few years. Countries like South Africa are welcoming millions of international visitors every year. So, don't let fear hold you back. Get out and see the beauty of Africa for yourself. Next, the lie that black Africans were biblically cursed to be slaves has been used for centuries to justify some of the worst atrocities in history. But this idea was built on a deliberate twisting of biblical texts. It all starts in Genesis 9, where Noah curses his grandson, Canaan, after Ham, his son, sees Noah naked. The curse says that Canaan will be a servant of servants to his brothers. Nowhere in this passage does it mention skin color or race. But somehow, this verse was twisted over time to suggest that all of Ham's descendants were cursed to be black, and by that logic, destined for slavery. This false belief didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was purposely used by European and American theologians during the transatlantic slave trade to justify enslaving Africans. They argued that the curse on Canaan applied to all black people, claiming it was God's will that they be subjugated. This wasn't a theological mistake. It was an attempt of wicked people to legitimize racism and oppression. In the 15th century, Portuguese historian Gomes Eanes de Zurara was one of the first to link the curse of Ham with slavery, saying Africans were enslaved because of Noah's curse. Fast forward to antebellum America, and pro-slavery figures like Alexander Stephens, vice president of the Confederate States, argued that black people were naturally suited for servitude because of this so-called curse. They even went so far as to say slavery was part of God's plan, with white people prospering and black people doomed to serve. This led to generations of black people being dehumanized and treated as inferior, as if they were born to serve. And it gave people a religious excuse to justify racism and discrimination. So next time you hear someone try to link the Bible with the idea that black people were meant for slavery, remember this: it's a lie, a dangerous, harmful distortion of Holy Scriptures. The truth is that all people are equal in the eyes of God, and these false interpretations need to be exposed for what they are: pure, hateful manipulation.